Hi, welcome back to part 2 of IT Landy Active Directory Nugget course. So for part 2, we're going to cover the deployment. In part 1, we did a high level. What is it? For part 2, you can see it's a bit deep dive, so it might be more than a couple of videos. So we will cover ADFS farm rules, topologies, HA consideration, firewall consideration, load balancer consideration. Then we move toward the certificate, ADFS certificate, how we can request certificate, distributing certificate, adding the KDS through certificate. For manage account, then we do the install the first, adding internal DNS, and then the last we'll do the web application proxy and anything related to this one. So you can see these are like few of them. Hopefully after this module you should be able to cover all these areas. Now uh, there are multiple deployment options within ADFS, and we need to understand the best choice which will fit your requirement. And with these few options, I mean, ADFS keep improving. Uh, so the first thing what we need to do with the ADFS is ADFS must be domain joined to AD. This is not an optional basically. So just to confirm, you got the proxy which typically you're gonna put in your DMZ, but ADFS needs to be domain joined. So this is one critical condition which you cannot do without it. So typically ADFS, join domain, then they reside inside the LAN, and will consume the information from the domain. And later on, we'll talk about how we can store database and how we can basically design your database as well, either using Windows internal database or SQL. Okay. So we'll talk about this in more details. Let's have a look what we got there. First of all, deployment of ADFS and the farms rule. As I said earlier, we have multiple deployments. So the farm rules, I mean, for small deployment, you can go for like single and with I will say single server with Windows internal database. And for like a big enterprise deployment, you need to think about distributing the load and shifting the load between multiple, I will say, farms or multiple nodes. Same thing applies to the proxy. I'll show later on. We have some design, some diagram, video. We can cover these, and then we can talk about the benefit of using Windows internal database or SQL and the limitation as well. So let's have a look. ADFS farm rules federation, the federation server which will hold the configuration for the trust relationship with application and other security token services. It issues authentication tokens, access trust, secure token, auditing, authentication attempts, interface with other, and must be domain joined. So again, we keep referring to this one. It must be domain joined. So first of all, federation server, they come with ADFS role. So what we need to do is basically Windows Server. You go to add remove features and install the federation roles. And typically or generally ADFS known as security token service STS. Now we mentioned that in part 1, ADFS issue token to the client to be consumed for authentication process. Not just an application can benefit from this authentication. Applications are typically referred to claims as either claim aware or non-claim aware, which means are capable of consuming the token or not capable of consuming the token. Also, to establish trust, the token is digitally signed with X509 certificate. The certificate is configured as trusted by the application as long as the token signature is valid and the certificate used to sign is valid. Now, If the certificate expired, or became invalid, the ADFS must be configured to utilize another certificate. We cover these in more details later on. Okay. Now, ADFS configuration database. I've mentioned earlier, either we use Windows internal database or we use SQL, which will store the configuration for the web application proxy and web site as well as the farm configuration like trust, certificate, logon page, and so on. Each federation server needs configuration database to store the service configuration associated with it. It's possible to use internal database or Windows internal database, which will save everything locally, and that will be on the primary server with replication to secondary every few minutes. Again, we cover this in more details. And then what we have the web application proxy. So first is the farm, next is the application proxy. With web application proxy, servers reside in the parameter network. We call them DMZ. It provides reverse proxy functionality for web application. It does proxy authentication requests for ADFS farms, usually reside in workgroup non-domain joined. So we mentioned earlier the farm need to be domain joined, the ADFS, but the web application does not require that one. It can be domain joined for, if you are planning to use constraint delegation, which we'll cover later on what it does mean. So most organizations attempt to provide robust mechanism to secure AD domain controller because of their sensitive nature. ADFS is no difference because because it's issuing the security token, it should be treated as security sensitive as well. Again, you might disagree, but to decrease the exposure to external network or parameter network or DMZ, web application proxy can be used as a layer in front of the STS. Now, security is achieved by making the WAPs or web application proxy transporter of the authentication request and response without the need to contact the AD directly. To increase the separation, it's recommended not to be domain joined, and instead the proxy maintains the relationship with the federation server via trust. Now, I assume this is all what we have for today, so let's quickly recap about the rules of the ADFS. So we mentioned earlier, we go ADFS, and there we can go single or we can go as a farm. Now we can go single, which means single server with Windows internal database, and that will be sufficient for medium small deployments. If we are enterprise, then we will need a farm, which means we need multiple servers, multiple maybe databases. Now, if we choose to go multiple farms with Windows internal database, bear in mind that replication between the primary and secondary will be locally. Okay. Now, if we choose to do SQL, then that can be SQL always on, or you can do active passive. This is what we highlighted earlier. We said really important condition when we deploy ADFS, it must be domain joined because it issued a token and to rely on AD. Whereas we mentioned the web proxy, it's non-domain joined and can sit or reside in DMZ or parameter network and can establish communication by trust to the ADFS and act as a gateway or layer before AD. Now, this is all what I have for you for Module 2 or Part 2, Section 1. Okay, so next section we'll dive into the design and we'll see what we can cover. Thank you. Goodbye.